Take a look at this pitch. It is on the inside corner. Doesn't have any run. And Johnson just rotates, gets the hands extended, and just drives this ball out of the park. Look at the location again, right over the white part of the plate. You got to bend that ball a little bit more. Johnson takes a yard.
Salut à toutes et à tous et bienvenue sur votre podcast Hype consacré au baseball. Alors, je viens en fait aujourd'hui pour un événement qui est assez spécial puisqu'aujourd'hui on va faire une interview avec une joueuse de softball qui a participé et qui a été une joueuse reconnue au niveau softball universitaire à Georgetown. Donc on va la saluer déjà. Hey Demetria, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. So let's be real. I know that we already did that interview, so I'm really sorry about that. But we're gonna redo it. But again, thank you a lot for being there with us. And I want to start like last time by first letting you introduce yourself, and then we're gonna start whenever you're ready.
Appreciate it. So I'm Demetria Cipriano, Demi for short. I have been playing softball pretty much my entire life. Played when I was younger. I started with t-ball, baseball, moved into softball. I played softball at Georgetown University, and now I'm playing co-ed slow pitch because fast pitch would just be a little too rough for me. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here and chat with you more.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you here again. And first of all, first question, did you have a chance to play in the Little League? First of all.
So, sure. So I did not get to play in Little League, unfortunately, but I do watch it a lot. It's really been cool to see the growth of Little League from when I was younger. I remember watching, I think it's the 12-year-olds, and now they have a softball league. And so I wasn't able to actually play in the baseball league. So I had switched over, excuse me, when I turned 12 to softball. And I don't remember if there was actually Little League softball when I was 12. I think it was just baseball. So that's kind of why. And I also don't know that I had a team that was near me when I lived in Florida. So very familiar with it, but I actually wasn't able to play, unfortunately.
Okay. And you said that you are watching it a lot. And what do you think about the level there?
Sure. I think it's grown immensely. The talent, you see some of these 12-year-olds and it's like, there's no way that person is 12 years old. I mean, some of these kids are throwing 70 miles an hour. And I know that you're only allowed to, throw, I think, a certain amount of pitches because then you can throw, I think, a certain amount, then you can't throw the next day or throw for a few days, which is great. I think they have some really good holds there for the kids so that they don't hurt themselves. But I think the player talent has just gotten just
amazing.
Overall amazing.
Yeah.
You watch and just like these kids, 12 years old, are just insane.
Yeah.
And I think it's been great.
I was ashamed of myself. I was like, okay, wow, these kids out there, they're just playing awesome. And for example, me, I never played baseball, even in France. But let's say because I used to play soccer, and it was like, watching little Messi or little Cristiano Ronaldo out there because they were really good in terms of physical aptitudes, physical skills, but also, even emotional skills. Like they were really, they didn't even kind of care about the event. They were really like, okay, let's just do it, let's win. So the competition was really interesting. The challenges were really interesting to see, and to see the softball parts, to see again next to that the baseball part, and that comes with my next question.
Mm-hmm.
We can see in the Little League, mixed baseball Little League. At some point, we know that there is some kind of differentiation between softball. Softball is more for girls, and baseball is more for boys. So when did this, separation happens, and how did you feel about it when you were younger?
Sure. So I played t-ball, I believe I started at 5 years old and then kind of played baseball until I was 11. And then when I went into the 6th grade in middle school, I switched over to softball. That's just because at the time it just split and went baseball boys, softball girls. And honestly, I didn't really think much of it. It was just, I didn't really want to be a girl on the boys team I knew that wasn't going to take me to college also, because I mean, you know, things are changing nowadays where maybe you'll see a female on a boys college team, but I don't know, I don't think it was really a big thing for me back then. So I just kind of started playing softball. And it wasn't too hard of a switch for me, which was nice. It was, you know, obviously different pitching and different speeds. And the game of softball is a lot quicker, just in terms of how far you're running to the base, what kind of ball you're throwing, much closer on the mound, things like that. So it wasn't too hard of a switch for me, but I don't remember a time where I was ever upset that I wasn't playing baseball anymore. So yeah, it didn't end up being very hard for me.
Okay. And
Yeah.
knowing that there is no rules that exclude, for example, women from baseball, or, you know, the opposite, like we even saw some women being on the verge of being selected, you know,
Oh yeah.
in the MLB, for example.
Yeah.
So overall, my point is it something that's gonna happen for you to see women going to play in MLB, or is it something the way that it is right now? It is the right thing to do, like playing softball for women, kind of, and baseball for men.
So I think there will eventually probably be a woman that wants to play in the MLB that probably gets there. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I think it's just kind of how it's been. I do appreciate that, and you know, as far as I know, there's no rule that a woman can be in the major leagues, but I think we just kind of have that split, and I think that's just kind of how it's been. I haven't really seen too much of an uproar there. I think it would be awesome to see a woman in the major leagues. There's also a lot more growth there as well, but it's super interesting because I went from playing with all boys to then playing with all girls, and now playing in co-ed, I'm back to playing with men and women. So it's kind of, I realized the flip-flop that it does, because there's men now that play co-ed slow pitch softball professionally, and there's also women that do that. So it's interesting to see the kind of flip-flop depending on the age bracket. So that's why it kind of leads me to believe that there could be some overlap if there was a big push, but I don't know that we've seen, or at least not that I've seen, a big overlap of, or big movement of women trying to be in the major leagues. Or I don't know if you've heard of anything like that, but I certainly haven't.
No, the only thing I know for sure, we have a really great player, Melissa Mayo. She's playing for Louisiana, the Cajuns.
Okay.
And back in 2015, I think, she was in kind of a training camp, you know, MLB. They are holding like training camps all around the world. And she was performing out there. And I think that she was on the verge to being selected at some point. But I'm pretty sure that, like you said, it might come, you know, to this at some point.
Yeah, it might. Yeah, I might have to look her up now. She might have been maybe for a farm team or a AAA team or a AA or single A team. There may have been a woman on kind of the minor league teams, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, me neither. I kind of recall that maybe there was a woman back in the 90s that were not that far. I know that I have some colleagues that are more, you know, they know more about it. But yeah,
Sure.
so we'll see about this particular specific thing. And
Yeah.
I want you to go back to high school now and to tell us what kind of player you were, your position on the field, and were you that, for example, a really good player, a talented player, one of the best in your state? How were you at the time?
Sure. So high school, so the school I went to was middle school and high school. So I was there from 6th grade through 12th grade. And because of that, it was great. I believe in 7th or 8th grade was able to play with the varsity team because my school was actually pretty new. So I ended up playing shortstop for my team for about, I think, 5 or 6 years. I ended up doing really well. We won districts. So basically the schools in our area, we would win districts a lot, and we never got farther than the state. We never got to the state title game, but we did get pretty far. But now I know my high school, actually looking back on it, has won state 6 years in a row. So that was pretty cool to hear that I was
Wow.
kind of one of the first ones on the team, and now they're winning, 20 years later, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, but no, I believe that I was one of the better players on the team. I was captain my last couple of years, and I really enjoyed playing shortstop. It was a lot of fun. I also played travel ball, so I traveled a lot within the state of Florida and a little bit in Georgia. So yeah, I feel like I played softball pretty much all of the time, except when I was playing volleyball. And my team was a pretty good team. We were still very young though, but I had a really great time playing.
Okay. And did you happen to see some kind of stardom into your high school, like the way the other children were looking at you, for example?
So like looking up to me,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah, no, we definitely had a lot of that. So as captain, I really was kind of the person on the team that everyone was going to about, any kind of conflict or anything of how we were doing. So I definitely did really well. I would get, they called it all district or second team all district or first team all district. And I got that a few years in a row as well. I had pretty good stats. So I think my average was above 350 for most of my years for hitting, and played really well. Not a lot of errors in the field, which was a lot of fun to to have kind of in my back pocket. I never hit any home runs though. I was never a home run hitter. I was more of a doubles hitter, which we can talk about more when I kind of talk about college, but that kind of translated into that. So I was kind of the third hitter in the lineup, where you have your fourth hitter is usually kind of your big, home run hitter, and first is leadoff, second, is probably your bunter. So I was kind of in that third middle range of like doubles and triples. So, but I was not fast, so they were mostly doubles.
And after high school comes college. Did you have some college proposals?
I did. So I actually was not sure 100% what I wanted to do after high school. So I started talking to some of the coaches that would come and watch you play travel ball. So one of the schools that I found really interesting just academically was Georgetown. And I messaged the coach and I said, hey, I'll be playing at this tournament this summer. Can you come watch me play? So luckily enough, she was already going to that tournament. So she was able to come watch me play. And then I was able to go for an official visit. So coach flies, you get to fly in, the coach, you get to meet the team, you get to see where they play and kind of see if you like the school basically, which was cool. I got to hang out with some teammates all weekend. I actually did that. I got a school tour also for the University of Pennsylvania, but I ended up just doing, not really loving the University of Pennsylvania, just kind of the atmosphere, and it's more like a city more than kind of a campus. So I was really excited about Georgetown. I remember my dad went with me, and we walked on the campus and he said, you have to go here. This is so amazing. It's just such a beautiful campus. So yeah, I loved the school. I loved everything about it. And that was kind of the only place I was really considering playing softball. So I also got into the University of Miami, but I would have gone there and not played softball and just, maybe played on a rec team or slow pitch or something. But I didn't want my softball career to end after high school. I really wanted to play in college. So that was a huge factor in my decision going to Georgetown. And that was kind of great because it was really good academic school and it had a softball team. So that was the main focus that I had there, knowing that, if I went elsewhere, I probably wouldn't be able to play softball.
Okay. And
yeah.
I already know the answer, but let me ask you again. Like, we know that in college sports, you can have scholarships. Was it the case for you?
So I was technically a recruited walk-on, quote unquote, because Georgetown's first year of the program was 2005 and I joined in 2006. So there's very little money for them to give out, unfortunately. So they were able to put me onto the program. And throughout the years, I was able to get some grants that would help out, but I wasn't able to get a full scholarship. So I think we only had 2 on the entire team for the majority of the time that I was there, unfortunately. Hopefully now they have a few more. So those positions for the scholarships had already been filled by the time I was recruited.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you are at Georgetown and you are playing there with your team. And I will ask you again, but if I'm correct, you were in no conference for the first year, right?
Yes, Correct.
and
Yep.
then you join the Big East, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So in Georgetown, how was the level, the team-wise and even individual-wise? Where do you were in terms of level compared to other players into your team?
Sure. So when I got to Georgetown, I had played shortstop my entire life, but I actually was moved to third base, which was still pretty awesome just to kind of be in the infield. I'm self-proclaimed not great in the outfield, so it was good that I stayed in the infield. But again, the team was very new. We were really trying to figure ourselves out the first few years. So we had some really awesome games where we just played great. We had some big wins. We traveled a lot and it was a blast. We did okay in the Big East for the first few years, but I think honestly they were building years. And I was there for 4 years, which was really the first I was the first recruited class ever at Georgetown. So it was really those building years and working hard to get into the Big East that were really exciting for us because we had to work to get into the Big East. It wasn't just something that you were able to just add yourself into. So I feel like our team really grew over those couple of years. And again, we had some really big wins. We got to travel to a lot of different places to play, which was a blast. We played in a lot of tournaments, got to see some really awesome other teams play. And so I wouldn't say, we didn't make the World Series or anything. We weren't really kind of one of the top tier schools, but we did grow every year that I was there, which was really cool.
Okay, interesting. And I know that you just told us that in high school you are a pretty good hitter. And I already know spoilers, but you were also a pretty good hitter back in Georgetown. So can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, sure. So I have to say my best year was definitely my sophomore year when I finally got my first home run. So I still have the ball. I hit a home run over the fence. I know, I didn't even realize I'd hit it. I was sprinting around the bases. My coach was like trying to get me to slow down. She's like, enjoy the moment, just like jog around the bases. So I think I had one that year and then, maybe 6 total my whole career. But no, my sophomore year was the best. I think I hit in the 300s that year, and I was one of the top people in the country for doubles. I think the average, it was like doubles per game. There was a specific average. So I averaged 1 point something doubles per game, which was, I think, one of the top 10 in the country. At some point, I actually led, which was pretty cool. I'll always take that claim to fame.
Hey, you're right to do that.
So my sophomore year was great. I think it was in the 300s there. I think I averaged over my 4 years somewhere probably around 275. Big East was definitely a change. When we switched over to the Big East, I honestly struggled a little bit. It was just a different type of play from the teams that we'd been playing. So my junior year wasn't my best year, but then my senior year, I kind of got used to it a little bit more, and my senior year ended up being a pretty decent year. But it was great to see the differences in the teams that you play and to be able to play at different levels. And sometimes, you play a great team that you go in and you're like, you know what, we might lose by a lot, but we had a really good time. And then sometimes we only lost 1-0 to these teams that people come in and you just think, we're not going to do very well, and you have a really good game, and it's just really exciting. And so I think that was probably one of the best parts of playing was, anybody can have a good day, anybody can have a bad day, and you just never know what's going to happen. So I ended up having good and bad games, of course, but I was mostly third base. I played a little bit of first base at times, and I was usually either leadoff or second batter for Georgetown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and I forgot to ask you, but I will ask you now. Obviously, you were playing on D1. So just for the French listeners, there is different divisions, and there is even the JUCO. So can you tell us about the specificities between the different divisions?
Sure. So a lot of the times, sometimes it has to deal with how many people go to a certain school or the level of play that so it depends on your conference as well. So I'll start with JUCO, right? So JUCO stands for junior college. Junior college in the United States is typically a 2-year university or 2-year college that you can get your associate's degree and then transfer to another college So let's say, I wanted to go to Georgetown, but I couldn't get in my freshman year. I could go to a junior college, hopefully get my associates, and then transfer to Georgetown for my last few years to get my bachelor's degree and master's, whatever I wanted. So it's a stepping stone for some people that want to go to a certain school but maybe didn't get in at first, or maybe they just want to start a junior college near home and they don't want to leave home yet. So there's a lot of different reasons someone might want to go to junior college. So yeah, the different divisions. So D1 is going to be your top tier division. That's going to be any sport really, your highest division for playing for the typically skill level. I mean, you still have great D1, D2, D3 schools that are playing, but the level of competition typically just heightens as you go up in the division. So I've had a lot of friends that have played in D2 and D3 and had an awesome time and won their divisions, and it was it was a blast. And then again, I was in D1 and I played these really high, like top tier teams, and sometimes we lost by a lot and sometimes we didn't. And it's always interesting to think about, like, how would we have done if we were in D2, right? Like, if we had taken our team, we were playing these D2 teams, would we have won more games? Would we not felt as challenged? And so it's kind of interesting to see the difference in the tiers, because I'm sure there are a lot of D2 teams that would beat D1 teams. I think it just depends on the school, unfortunately, and sometimes it's even the size of the school. You'll see, you have these big schools that are D1, but maybe they don't have as good of a team that maybe would do better in D2. So I think there's a little bit of back and forth that can be conversation that can kind of go on from there as well.
Yeah, and to add something, we know that, for example, you can even from the same college be in D1 for some sports and in D2, for example, for other sports.
Yep.
So it really depends. Thank you for
Yeah.
the clarification for the French listeners. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to go to the professional level.
Mhm.
So after your degree, after the college, you stopped to play softball and you went to the, like, as data engineer or to your professional life, or did you try first to go to a softball professional team and then you saw that maybe it's not for you? How did it happen? What happened at the time?
Sure. So honestly, I never considered playing softball past college. I know for a lot of people that's something that they want to do and they want to play professionally, but I kind of just knew that college was going to be my last kind of hurrah, I guess, for softball, for fast pitch softball. Unfortunately, there's just not a lot of great opportunities to play professionally after college. I think that's getting a little bit better now, but especially 10, 11 years ago when I graduated, it was really tough to, you probably have to play overseas. I did have some friends that went and played overseas, and I think, they had a blast and had a great time, but I think it's not something that's super sustainable, especially with salaries and things like that. So kind of considering all of that and then having to try out for the team, and then there's a chance you don't make the team, and then kind of where do you go from there? Do you just enter the workforce? Do you keep trying? So I think I had just come to the conclusion that I didn't really want to do that, and then I'd probably just play slow pitch and have a good time doing that. So I honestly didn't even think about playing after college. I think it would have been a lot of fun watching, kind of going and watching professionals play now. But yeah, I was pretty content with just, moving on from there.
And I think you raised a good point. It's about the salaries and for example, you want to play professionally in softball in the US. It's going to be hard to just play with that and earn enough money to even pay your rent or this or that. We can say there is the kind of the same thing with the minors in baseball, even though they are trying to be more and more professional and helping more and more the young players. So my question is it only for the elite players to have a shot at playing at a huge level and earn a lot of money? Or is it just that, like you kind of said, but maybe softball, in terms of professional softball, it's better to go overseas instead of staying in the US?
Yeah, I'm not sure more now, but I feel like back when I was coming out of college, I really did see people going overseas to play. So now they have there is a professional fast pitch league now, and I know actually they're just I don't remember exactly what it's called. Maybe it's the Women's Premier League, WPL, I think. They're actually next year going to be having more professional softball teams in the league, which is awesome. I need to kind of do a little bit more research on that. But one of the women I used to watch play in college, Lauren Chamberlain, she's actually the head of the Women's Premier League now, and they're going to be having much more opportunities for women to be playing after college, which is awesome. But I know kind of after, and again, who knows what those salaries are going to look like, right? So they might have the opportunity to play, but can they live off of the salaries? I think it's awesome that people can go and play overseas. It's one for purely traveling to go and play and see the world a little bit. I think that's awesome, especially if you can live off the salaries. But you know, some people just aren't in those situations where they can do that. So I think overseas was probably for the best. I think maybe it's getting a little bit better in the United States now. To have both options, right? It would be awesome to go play overseas, but it would also be great to have the league here and be able to play here. So
Okay, and I have another question. We can see some former stars, in softball, becoming, for example, broadcasters. Like, let's, for example, say Amela Scarborough. She's a broadcaster in ESPN, if I'm correct.
Yep.
So, did you ever think about that kind of professional way, like, still staying in softball as a broadcaster?
Sure. So I never did, but it's funny because my dad is really big into sports, and every time we're watching sports, we'll always say the same thing, and then 2 seconds later, the announcer says the same thing that we just said. And so he always said, "Man, you should really be an announcer. You should be an anchor, and it would be a lot of fun." And I never really considered it. I think it would be a really cool opportunity. And I know Jessica Mendoza, my favorite softball player of all time. She was on the USA team. She's now, an MLB anchor, I believe, for the Dodgers, or she was for World Series last year and everything.
Yes, I think you're right. And yes, she's one of the most known announcer.
Yeah,
Jessica
I have her.
Mendoza.
I have her autograph behind me on one of her pictures. Yeah, she's one of my favorites, and it's funny because she played at Stanford when I was first watching her, and she's a lefty outfielder, and I'm a righty infielder. So everyone was like, "Why do you love her so much?" And I was like, "She's just a great presence." And obviously, you see as an anchor, she just has this really good presence about her, and she's very knowledgeable about the game. And I think that was a great question that you had, because I think you're now seeing more and more women that are just as knowledgeable as everyone else that can have those conversations that, even if you played softball, baseball has maybe a few differences, but we can play and talk about the sport a lot as well. So that was nothing I considered, but I think it was it's fun to just do it kind of all home alone on my couch.
Yeah. And you just say something, you just said Jessica Mendoza, right?
Yes.
And she was part of the Team USA, right? In softball.
Yep.
So let's let's switch and go to Tokyo. In Tokyo, there were the softball tournament, and I want your what did you think about the competition first, and what do you think about softball in the Olympics overall?
Sure. So obviously this was the first time softball had been in the Olympics for, I think it was 13 years. And I was really, really excited because last time we obviously lost to Japan and got the silver medal, which fortunately, spoiler alert, we did the exact same thing this year. But I'm really glad it was back, even though I know it won't be in Paris in 2024, but I was a little underwhelmed. And I say that because I think there was so much going against softball and baseball, including in the Olympics. They really had to fight just to be in the Olympics, and they had to share a stadium, and I think their hours were very weird. I think I woke up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. most of the days just to even watch a game, which I know obviously in Japan was a better time, but it was really tough for them to get viewership because the times were just very different from, some of the primetime things that we could watch. And I don't remember there being a lot of offense as well. I think the games were very low scoring. You didn't really see much hitting, and I don't know why that was, but it didn't seem like the teams were super excited to be there. It's the Olympics. There was also nobody in the stands, which I'm sure doesn't help. So there was no one watching. I'm sure it probably just feels like you're practicing and not really playing. And I guess I didn't feel that spark that I felt. And I think, it's a number of things. It's probably also really tough to know that they were playing this year and then they won't be able to play in 2024. I think there's probably a lot of things that go into it. I know that, they're obviously excited to be in the gold medal match, but I can't even imagine being there with no audience or nobody at the field, and you had to fight to be there. And they kind of started playing even before the opening ceremonies, and they were done pretty quickly before everything even really kind of got started. So maybe they kind of felt like an afterthought, but those are just kind of all things that I was thinking about for it. But it was great to watch them. It's great to watch all the teams. Everyone's extremely, extremely athletic and great to watch, but I was left a little underwhelmed, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we can say that, for example, the baseball competition, I think that the baseball competition was a little bit better in terms of intensity, and even in terms of the different type of baseball we could see, sorry, because we could see Japan or Asian style, less powerful but a little bit more kind of tricky and strategic.
Yeah.
And we had obviously the Team USA with the power. We had even Dominican Republic with a lot of players that used to play in the MLB. So it was really interesting. And for softball, I was kind of like you. Something felt off.
Yeah.
It was like, something was missing there.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's really difficult to imagine that, for example, competition like breakdance will be in Paris in the Olympics. And not baseball. Sorry for for people who are fans of breakdance, but it's like, seeing that, like you said, it's kind of an afterthought. So it's really, not depressing. I won't say depressing, but it's kind of disappointing that we don't have softball. We won't have softball or baseball there.
Yeah.
But that's life, anyways.
Yeah. I think you kind of pointed it out too. And it's obviously, I think it's because they took softball and baseball out and they're putting in brand new sports as opposed to leaving in, softball and baseball, which I was a little bummed that we had golf, and nothing against golf at all. But, we have golf tournaments regularly all of the time, all around the world. And I feel like, golf has a very good following, but baseball and softball around the world, you don't get to see the international competition. So I think that's Olympics lets international competition shine, and we need more of that, because I think people in the United States just think, we just have the United States and everyone's doing great. It's like, great, but let's play France, let's play Japan, let's play all these other teams and see how everybody matches up, right? Which is great. I love the Olympics, brings everybody together, but it's really, I think, disheartening is probably the best word to see that it's taken out, and people won't get that chance to see the camaraderie and to be able to play other teams from around the world is such a cool experience. I can't even imagine. I actually wanted to go to Tokyo to watch, but obviously there was nobody allowed in or anything, which understandable. But yeah, I think it's a little disheartening is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, and just, to connect what we said in the beginning with what you just said, for example, when you see the little leagues, you can see even people from different countries, different even continents, and it's kind of overwhelming. Like, it's kind of really, you can feel that you are part of it. You can feel the pressure. You can feel the excitement. You can feel everything, and it's worldwide. So it's kind of disappointing that the Olympics that should be worldwide, this should be the main event. And the way it was this year, especially for softball and baseball, it was really disappointed. Last questions.
Sure.
So first of all, you said that now you are playing slow pitch, right?
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. So ever since I graduated, about 11 years now, I've been playing co-ed slow pitch softball. So right now I actually play Wednesday and Thursday. I have games tonight, but I play on, they're sort of advanced, I guess you could say. There's, they call them unofficially beer leagues, because we just kind of go out there and have fun. We just want to hit the ball, run around, have a good time. My Thursday night league is a little more competitive, and then sometimes I'll play in tournaments on weekends. So I'll travel kind of around Virginia and play with still co-ed, but slow pitch, and different rules and everything. There's you start with a count as 1-1. One of my leagues, women hit with smaller balls and men hit with the regular size softballs, which is still weird to me. And I've actually gone and watched some some of the tournaments, we have the men's leagues where they just, I don't know if you've ever seen men's slow pitch softball, but these guys just hit home runs so far. It's very impressive. So yeah, anyway, I play co-ed. I usually play second base now. And second base or first or catcher. I don't dare pitch because this guy's hit the ball very hard.
Oh.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. It keeps me active, and it's certainly not fast pitch. It's certainly not anything like I used to play, but it's good to just kind of get out there, and I've met a lot of new people, which is a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I just added a question. I just saw this question into some other documentary, so I'm just borrowing it. Like,
Yeah.
let's say you could meet your child self.
Mhm.
What would you say to you when you were a child? Like, what kind of advice would you tell to yourself as a child?
Sure. So a little bit about me. So I feel like I'm a very good team player, but I also take a lot of the heat and put it on myself. So if we've lost a game and I was the last out, I would get really upset. Or if I struck out, I'd get really upset, even though, a good average for a hitter is, 300, right? So 7 times you're out. So honestly, as a kid, I would have loved to tell myself, enjoy it, sit back and enjoy it, because it only lasts so long. And, it's a team sport. Just because you struck out doesn't mean that you lost the game for everybody. And it truly is honestly one of the best times you're ever going to have. So enjoy it, because once it's gone, unfortunately. I distinctly remember my last game and the last out. I have it in my head, the last out ever that I ever played at Georgetown. I'll never forget it. And I think team sports growing up was just fantastic. I think it would just be to maybe enjoy it a little bit more. And I enjoyed it immensely, but it's exciting to remember kind of where you came from. So I think it would be enjoy it more. Don't put so much pressure on yourself too.
Yeah, and knowing that baseball or softball, they're called, how can I say that? Like, it's kind of sports where failure is kind of common. Like, when I say failure,
Yeah.
it's like you said, like 7 times out of 10 you were out, and
Yep.
it was a pretty good average. So
Yeah,
when you think about it,
exactly.
like, it's okay to be struck out, or to not be in a good day, because that's the kind of sport it is, and it's more about your mental than just your physical skills.
Yeah, especially seeing people grow up now, and it's nice when you see, it's kind of a breath of fresh air to see people in team sports where they're being, they have that attitude of like, okay, well, I got out this time, but I'm going to get back up and I'm going to do it again. And, my team's counting on me, and that definitely set me up, I think, even for things in the future. So it's nice it was really great to have that growing up. And it is tough, right? Like if you're batting 300, you're doing great, but you might not get a hit for 2 games, and then you get a hit the 3rd game and you're still hitting really well. So yeah, that was always something that I think I didn't see until I was done playing. And I was like, okay, well, I actually played really well. I held myself too high sometimes and got very upset about that. So, but yeah.
And last question, it's kind of the same question, but it's more about any girl in the world. What kind of advice would you tell them?
Sure. So number one thing is make sure you're still enjoying yourself. There's a lot of pressure for younger girls to be on 4 teams at once and to constantly be playing. And when it starts to become not fun, that's when I think it's time to maybe take a step back and just see if this is still what you want to do. And honestly, whatever you feel is what's best for you is what's best for you. So, I know there's a lot of pressure if you want to play professionally, if you want to play in college, you have to be on all these teams, you have to do all these things. And, if you're a solid player and you know what you want to do and who you want to be, just follow your path and don't worry about what other people are saying. Keep your head up. Again, you will get out more times than you probably get hit, and that's okay. And try honestly to just, again, slow down and enjoy it, because it goes by very quickly.
That's a perfect conclusion. If I wasn't the podcast host, I will just let you, finish like this and just, put the off button. But fortunately, I have to finish behind you. So thank you a lot for this interview again, especially since it's not the first time we were together a few weeks ago, and it's kind of frustrating to redo it. But it was a real pleasure to even be able to ask you the same questions, different questions also, and to have your mind about it, like your eyes on every aspect of this game, especially since you're playing this now for years, I can say. And again, maybe we'll be able to see you around, for even MLB podcasts or that kind of things with us.
Yeah, I'd love
So
to. That's awesome.
yeah, I would love to as well. So
Yeah.
thank you again. I'm gonna finish in French. Merci à toutes et à tous pour cette interview avec Demetria. Encore une fois, merci de suivre les podcasts Hype, MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL. Pas mal de contenu Hype. Hype Sports Media sur Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Hype Sports Media, c'est votre podcast sur Apple Podcasts, Spotify et Deezer. Et sur tous ces bons mots, on vous dit à bientôt. Ciao.
B-I-G